JP Godsey for the Coastal Virginia Chamber of Commerce, your host. Another one of our updates from our elected officials here in Hampton Roads, and a big one. I have one of our congressmen from right here, and we're going to jump right into it. Congressman McEachin, long time since I've seen you. First, congratulations on the election, and what do you got going on from that here on out?
Well, we're still going to take a couple of minutes to enjoy a 91,000 vote victory. That makes you feel good. That's a very, very rewarding. But you know, our district's got some serious issues that still have to be dealt with, just like the nation does. We have got to crush this coronavirus. Got some good news, obviously, the other day that I'm sure your listeners know about already in terms of the virus, but there's still, in terms of the vaccine, but there's still work to do. We've got to make sure the vaccine's up to snuff, and then we've got to go through the Herculean effort of distribution, and not just in the United States, of course, but across the globe. But we're up to the task. We can get this done. We just have to dig in and get to work.
Speaking of that, it was reported this week that President Trump had already pre-ordered millions of the vaccines and was going to bring the Army, National Guard, or some people in to help. There's a plan in place for distribution. What have you heard about that?
I've heard pretty much what you've recited. Now, I haven't seen anything in writing yet. As you know, we've been busy with individual elections, and we will gather back in D.C. next week, and perhaps we'll learn more then. It's going to continue to take planning and effort well into the Biden administration to make sure that these millions of vaccines are distributed in an appropriate manner and in an appropriate order to the people who need it most. You know, just speaking from my perspective, you know, I think the first people who need to be inoculated are healthcare workers, right?
Yes.
I mean, they're the ones who are on the front lines. They're the ones who are literally putting their lives on the line each and every day, and then we work down from there. Not that every American's life isn't as valuable as everyone else's, but those healthcare workers are really laying it all out on the line for us.
I don't think there would be any argument from anybody upon that. And for just speaking as an average American, I think I speak for a lot of Americans, though, with the frustration, because we have so much more in common as Democrats and Republicans than we do that's different. Everybody wants clean air. Everybody wants safe schools. Everybody wants the police to be able to respond if they call them a 911. Yet the newspapers and media always focus on just those few things that divide us.
Well, you know, it's how they sell papers, right? It's how they it's how they generate revenue. And that's not to suggest that our differences aren't important. We do have some important differences that need to be hashed out, but you're so right. There's more that unites us than divides us.
Absolutely. It's so good to hear you. Congressman McEachin joins us right here, fresh after a big election night victory exactly a week ago. And so we're glad to have him here in the Coastal Virginia Chamber of Commerce. JP Godsey, your host. COVID-19, we talked about the vaccine, the shutdowns, because now that second wave looks to be coming, and some things are opening up. Governor Northam just is allowing Busch Gardens, for example, to open up at half, and I'm glad, at half capacity. In fact, I think they open their doors tomorrow. But any suggestions on what we can do? Is that the right thing? Do we need another shutdown?
No, this is what we need. We need our masks. You know, the CDC has confirmed what a lot of us knew all along, is that not only does the mask protect you from me, but it protects me from you. We know that if we wear our mask, we cut down on the amount of people that we can possibly infect. I was looking at a report the other day that showed that one person without a mask can infect as many as 400 other individuals. That same person with a mask might infect 2.5 individuals. And so the wearing a mask should have never been politicized. It is just a safety measure. So we need to wear these masks. We need to practice our social distancing as best we can. And we can crush this thing, and we can crush it without having to shut down our economy, which, as you know, literally costs trillions of dollars.
Well, that's a big part of our Coastal Virginia Chamber. We're focusing on small businesses, especially, and we already touched base on the civil discourse. There's been so much diatribe, and this election was a nasty one. There's no other word to put it. Hopefully, we can come back to some degree of civility. It looks like Joe Biden is, of course, going to be our next president. We wish him the best in prayers, although President Trump still has some court appeals out there. What are your thoughts about that civil discourse in our election process? How can we regain that, Congressman?
Well, we've got a lot of work to do in that regard. When I'm going to make some assumptions about you that may or may not be accurate, but I suspect you came up at a time very similar to the time I did, where we had 4 television stations: ABC, CBS, NBC, and public television.
We did. And remember the Indian that came on at the end of the night when we did the Star Spangled Banner?
Exactly. TV went off at 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock, whenever it was, and didn't come back on until about 6. But the point is, as you so well know, we all share the same set of facts. Now we may have differences of opinions, but we didn't differ on the facts. Now you can go to CNN, you can go to Fox, you can go to MSNBC, and you can get alternate facts. That is not a good thing. We need to come back together as a nation and be able to agree on facts, and then we can disagree on other things. But if we can't agree on what is truth, what is fundamental, then we're going to continue to have problems. But I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to do that. I think President-elect Biden has set the right tone. I'm going to assume that you love this country as much as I love this country.
Amen.
You and I may differ on, how to get clean air or how to get clean water, but it doesn't mean that you don't want it. And it doesn't mean that you're evil incarnate. It just means you have a different opinion, and we ought to be able to hash those differences out and then go have a knee-high grape afterwards.
Or go to Roger Brown's there in Portsmouth, my favorite place, and get chicken and waffles.
There you go.
I walk in, I get the ribs and the chicken and waffles and have a beer with him. He's my favorite. Now, do you physically live in Chesapeake or Portsmouth or where?
I live in Richmond.
Or in Richmond, excuse me. Yeah, your district goes, though, from Chesapeake all the way up to Richmond, right?
Right. It actually goes from the eastern suburbs of Henrico County, which, as you know, is a bedroom community to the north of Richmond, stretches down the I-95 corridor, sneaks over on 64, picks up Charles City County, but basically goes down I-95 to the North Carolina border, hangs a left on 58, and picks up parts of Suffolk and Chesapeake.
It's the amendments. The Democratic Party in general was against the amendment number 1. I don't know its position on number 2. They both passed overwhelmingly. You think this is going to be a step in the right direction to possibly get nonpartisan, fair districts cut?
I think that, I was against number 1. I was in favor of number 2, but I was against number 1, and I'll tell you why. If you think about it, once this group of people have been appointed, I think it's 4 from the House majority, 4 from the House minority, 4 from the House. 4 from the Senate majority, 4 from the Senate minority. They are responsible to no one. They write a plan. The General Assembly either passes the plan or it doesn't. The General Assembly can't amend the plan. If the General Assembly doesn't pass the plan, the court does it. The challenge with that is that you as a citizen don't have any input. Now, I hear you. You say, well, I didn't have any input when the General Assembly was doing it. That's not true. You may not have chosen to exercise your input, but you had input to the process. If you didn't like a plan and you were upset enough about it, you could vote me out about that plan. you can't do anything about this group of people who are now going to be in charge of every 10 years redrawing the lines. Now, I hope they do a good job. We all have to put our shoulder to the wheel. It's the will of the people to try this. It's not the path I would have chosen, but we have to do our very best to make it work, and I'm hopeful that it'll work. But anytime you put together a group of people responsible to no one, you have a problem.
I hear that. I do very much appreciate your thoughts, though. It wasn't my thoughts is the best way, but now it's the will of the people, so we're going to move forward the best we can. Time's rapidly going beyond us. I promise I wasn't going to keep you too long. Stimulus money. That bill, which it seemed was on the verge of coming together, Nancy Pelosi and the Treasury Secretary seemed like they were fairly close at a couple times. Do you now that the election's over, you think we're going to get a plan in the next few weeks?
I certainly hope so. I know that I'm a recovering lawyer, and I know people don't think of lawyers as businessmen, but we are. And so I do understand the pressures that businesses are facing, especially small businesses are facing right now. And we need this plan passed, and we need to get these monies out the door. But to be fair, we need to have a president who's engaged. And right now, President Trump does not look like he's engaged with this process. We'll continue to hope for the best. I know that Speaker Pelosi has reduced the amount of money she's asked for. She's reduced the time period that she's asked for to try to make things more palatable. From my perspective, I hope that works. But we're ready to return to DC within 24 hours to pass a bill.
Good. That's what everybody wants to hear. That's statesmanship, if you will. Well, small business kind of went on with that stimulus. We hear from small businesses as a chamber, their number one issue is running out of money, meeting the payroll, those type of things, and it all comes back to the almighty dollar. Your thoughts?
Well, that's why we've got to get these monies out the doors, but we can't just focus just on small business, as incredibly important as they are. We have to focus on our states and localities, because if states and localities have to start engaging in layoffs, guess what happens? We start losing first responders. We deepen the recession. We make it harder to get out of this hole that we find ourselves in. And so part of the challenge, and quite frankly, part of the holdup has been, who do we help? Do we just help small business, or do we expand the pie and make sure that we help our states and localities as well? Because you and I both know that, yeah, we can cut state government if we want to, but if we start laying off teachers, if we start laying off healthcare providers, if we start laying off firefighters and police officers, we're not doing ourselves any favors.
Any thoughts, the biggest issues that voters told you that you'd like to share with us? I'm sure you talked to thousands over the course of the campaign. So many of the electeds and candidates threw out a couple different things, but there were several consistent ones. What did you hear?
Virus. People want to return to normalcy. People understand that to really be able to open their schools safely, which everybody wants to have happen, to be able to really get back to work and to be able to socialize with coworkers that you enjoy being with, which everybody wants to have happen, we have got to crush this virus. That's issue number 1, 2, and 3.
That was what we heard from most people. You know what we didn't hear is from any candidate. Everyone said nobody supported defunding the police. And especially the black candidates that I interviewed, because I said, did any of you in the black neighborhoods you're going through? They go, no, all overwhelmingly. They were saying we want more police funding because we're the ones that are the most vulnerable. Did you hear the kind of the same thing resonate?
In many ways I did. I think the defund of the police movement was mischaracterized, and that's the fault of a lot of folks. We have got to watch as as sophisticated elected officials, as sophisticated activists, we've got to understand that the words we use matter. And no one, I don't believe, ever really meant to abolish police departments. What I think people meant to do was to take a look at budgets, local budgets, state budgets, and make sure that we're funding things that help prevent the need for the police in the first place. Mental health funding, diversionary programs, things that keep people out of trouble to begin with. Make sure that we're properly allocating that type of money for those types of causes. I think that's what was really meant by the so-called defund the police movement.
We just lost your picture, Congressman.
Yeah, and I lost you too, and I'm not sure why, so I apologize to you, but I hear you.
Well, okay, we'll just wrap it up with this. What are your plans coming up? It's my favorite, absolute wonderful time of the year. I was going to ask you about the picture of the Rat Pack I got over my shoulder. I remember, you know these good old boys, don't you?
I'm trying to see it, but yeah, I do.
The Rat Pack.
Yeah.
Frank and Sam, because you and I are about the same age, and we grew up with that on the old jukebox back when our parents were playing.
Yeah, well, you know, my plans are, we are, my wife and I have 3 outstanding children. They're in different parts of the country, and so we're trying to figure out if we're going to Zoom Thanksgiving or if they're coming home. But the biggest thing we want them to do is to be safe and to remain healthy, and we'll find a way to celebrate with them one way or another.
The inauguration, I know, is going to be very exciting. How many terms? This is your 3rd term?
Right, although I don't know there's going to be an inauguration in a classical sense. You know, I don't know what the Biden administration's got planned for that.
I got you. We'd like to have you on at least 3 times a year. Just give us updates from your district. What's going on? Now that you've been on, you know these are nice, warm, and fuzzy things. We like to see your handsome, skinny face now, and get an update as to what's going on in your district. Is that too much to ask?
It's not too much to ask at all. And next time I'll make sure this COVID beard is shaved.
Okay. Well, I'm no shave November. This comes off in another 2 weeks, but no shave November. Congressman, you're the best. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm your host, JP Guscozzi, Coastal Virginia Chamber of Commerce.com. Come join us. We want you as part of our team. Until next time, thanks.
Take care.
Thanks, Congressman. We'll talk to you soon. Happy holidays.